Welcome all to our channel GTech Fluent. Our today's topic number 6 in Entity Framework Core video tutorial series is saving data into the Entity Framework Core. So in this video, we will discuss and understand how to add or insert the data into the Entity Framework Core. To add data to the databases, we can use the dbset.add method for adding the new instance of our entity classes. Then we need to call save changes method. Next, we will see how to update the data. When we make any changes to the existing entity or simply modifying the value of the assigned properties, and then we need to call the save changes. So it will update the data into the database. Next we will see deleting the data. So we can use the dbset.remove method to delete the instance of the entity classes. So if the entity is already exists into the database, it will be deleted during the save changes. If the entity has not yet been saved to the database, then it will be removed from the context and will be no longer to be inserted when the save changes is called. So to summarize the thing, db context.savechange method save the all changes made in the context to the database. So we can add, modify and remove data using our context and entity classes. So we are in our project which we have created for this video tutorial series. So in our previous video, we have discussed how to query data into the entity framework core, where we have written the methods to get the student data, to get the student list by name, and get the student with this single entity by using the ID. So now we need to add three more method here for add, update and delete. So first we need to go to the contract. So let's go to the contract. Here let's add the add, update and delete method. So we'll add over here. So the return type of the add will keep as a void. We'll call method add, and here we need to pass the entity. Which entity do you want to add? So as this contract is belong to the student entity, so we need to pass the student. Then we need to require update method. So similar way we'll add the update, get the parameter as a student entity, and next method we require the delete, and the parameter would be the student ID. So now we have defined our method. So we need to provide the implementation. So let's go to the student services, press control dot and implement the interface. So first we will see how to add the student record. So to add the student record, we need to create the instance of the context object using where context new school context. After this, we need to add the object into the context. So context dot, we need to insert the record into the student table. So we need to select the student dot, we have the add method. As we are adding the single entity, so we are using the add method. So there is another method add range, where you can pass the multiple entities or the list of the entities, where you can pass the list of the student entities and add the data into the bulk to improve the performance. So as of now we will using the add. Which object we are going to be add? So we are adding the student entity. After this we need to keep in mind, we need to call save changes method of the context. Save changes. So if you are not calling this and simply adding, so it will not add your record immediately. So you need to make sure you are calling the context.savechanges method. It is required to the every operation considering insert, update or delete. So now our method is ready to add the data into the database. Let's go to the update one. So let's copy this signature, paste it here. So now we need to update the record with the existing entity. So we need to get the existing entity from the database first. So we'll call student obj, and we will get the entity from database student context dot student, and where with the help of the id c dot id, equal to the id of the entity where we are passing to the this method, and we need to use the first or default. In our example, let's say we need to update the student name. So this object dot name equal to the name which is assigned to this entity which we are issuing for this method. So now let's we have assigning the name for this object. After this we need to call the context dot save changes method. Now here what we are doing, we are getting the object of the existing entity and we are setting the property, let's say name, we are updating with the new one which we are passing for this update method. So now this is ready for the update operation. Let's go to the delete one. So let's copy this signature. So here we need to get the existing entity to delete the particular entity from the DB set. So to get the existing entity, we will use where student equals to context dot student where id of the student equal to id which pass to this method, and we will call equal to student, and we will call first or default. So here this query will return the existing entity which is exist into the database. Now we need to remove this entity. So to remove or delete the entity, we need to use db context dot remove method. So in this case, the db context is student dot remove. Similar way, here we have the two method like the remove and the remove range. So here also we can remove the single or multiple objects. So we will use the remove and pass the entity. After this, we need to call the save changes. So now this method is ready for the delete operation. So if you see, save changes is mandatory after updating or doing any operation in the context. Otherwise, your changes will not be saved immediately. So in our next video, we will see how to use this method into the ASP.NET Core MVC application, and we will add, update and delete the record from the ASP.NET Core MVC application. So please let us know if anyone has any query or doubt on this. We will meet in our next video. Thank you.